Now that Bitcoin is pumping, remember the video early this year about 2 Bitcoin scenarios. Parabola model, 70,000 by 29th of July. Today this might seem like Captain Obvious, but the video was from February 21st, when price was down here at around 50k, and there was a lot of hesitation. Now I don't even suggest to do predictions. It's better to react. My whole process is a reactive one, based on what actually happens. But why did this work? It worked because patterns repeat. And why do they do that? Because humans are behind this, and they repeat the same behaviors over and over again. That's why technical analysis works. It's not magic. It's just people. But when I uploaded that video, the file name that I had called the video was actually 300k scenario. And I said that time will tell which of these two is playing out. So let's talk again about this second scenario, which was based on 2 observations. One which was that the post-halving gain was always bigger than the pre-halving gain, though with a diminishing difference. The other and perhaps more important observation was that the pre-halving pump and the post-halving pump tended to be the same duration, almost down to the day. And based on the data in February this year, if multiplying those numbers, that came out as 300,000 in September 2025. So just a reminder of how this looked during previous halvings. Same duration, higher amplitude. Same duration, higher amplitude. Next, same duration, higher amplitude. So if that would repeat this time, same duration, higher amplitude, but only a little bit, that would bring price up here at about 300k. The positive signs here is that price has decidedly moved up into this square. Here you see that it almost threatened to fall out. Another change is that the parabola previously looked steeper, more something like this. But drawing parabola is not an exact science, and if we today should fit the best price action, it looks more something like this, and it actually becomes a little bit unnatural to get this one up to 300k in time for this. Then it really needs to accelerate from here. Not impossible, but I would be fine even if it takes a little bit longer. Then something else really fun has developed here. Now don't trend Bitcoin on monthly candles, guys, but I'm gonna switch to monthly candles to show you something quite fun. Have you noticed that this is actually a confirmed inverse head and shoulders? The target in an inverse head and shoulders is this distance from the breakout point, and where does that take us? Almost exactly to 300,000. But for that scenario to play out now, some real change needs to happen. Why is that? Isn't just 10x, 10x? It doesn't matter which of these parabolas we're in. They all look the same. No, it's not. Not when we're starting to move up into a lot of money, which $90,000 for 1 Bitcoin is. As we move up into higher absolute amounts, it gets harder to make a relative increase in percent. And that's also what we saw during the 4 previous parabolas. Even if we eventually make it to 300k, the gain from the bottom will still be less than the 4th parabola. So why is that? It's for 2 reasons. And as in many problems, if you take it to the extremes, it becomes easier to understand. The first factor is that if your $1 has gone to $10, you don't really have that much incentive to sell, because you can't do much with $10 anyway. And you can as well keep the money in the crypto casino. But if your 100k has gone to $1 million, you might decide to sell it, to buy a new house. I'm not recommending you to do that, but some people will probably do that. So that's the first factor which explains this diminishing gain. There is simply more incentive for the holders to sell. The second factor is perhaps less obvious, but more important. Over here on the left, if you need $10 for the price to 10x, you can go convince almost anyone in the world, your grandmother, that if you need $10 billion for the price to 10x, you need to convince one of maybe 100 hedge fund managers in the world. And if you need $10 trillion for the price to 10x, if taking this to the extreme, you need to convince one of maybe 2 or 3 presidents of major countries, which maybe we have done now. But was it only talk, or will it translate into real change? I think it's at least possible. And I'm saying that based on 2 world observations. Again, I like to think in scenarios, and right now we have scenarios playing out. So 2 days ago, Elon Musk tweeted that this guy, Scott Bessent, is a business as usual choice, whereas Howard Lutnick, apologies if I pronounce it wrong, will actually enact change. Business as usual is driving America bankrupt, so we need change one way or another. And Howard is saying here,
have hundreds of millions of dollars.
Okay.
Okay. Hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars exposure to Bitcoin. And it will be billions.
And if looking into who this man is, he was in high school when his mother died, and the following year, during his first week at school, his father died after a nurse accidentally gave him 100 times the dose of a chemotherapy drug. And as an adult, after losing 658 employees, including his brother, in the September 11 attacks, Lutnick survived the subsequent collapse of the towers on the ground. So this is a person that has experienced a lot of hardship. Tends to make you willing to take some calculated risks, because even if you don't, you might die anyway. So without knowing anything more, just as Elon Musk writes here, here is someone that will actually enact change. Massive change. Unthinkable change under the current leadership of the Treasury by Secretary Janet Yellen. I don't know how this will turn out, but you see here how the world is just 1 inch away from radical change. What about the rest of the world? Well, El Salvador, no one has missed the change that's happening there. El Salvador's bold investment in Bitcoin and clearing up the crime. And now Argentina voted for a huge change. Asia. They have been a little bit on and off with the crypto party, but I always feel that it's just an inch away from all in. And if one starts and is successful, if we get the El Salvador of Asia, that could snowball really fast. Asia is fast, as anyone can testify if you spend any amount of time there. One day next to the highway, there is a swamp. Then you come back 3 years later, and they've built a mega city there. I've saved Europe for last, because it's felt a bit hopeless. But perhaps that's exactly why it could turn into radical change soon. Let's look at some statistics. 1992, 2008, 2024. China, US down here, still, number 2. India came from nowhere, was nowhere here, now it's there. Japan, same situation as Europe, starting to trail down. Indonesia also came from nowhere, nowhere here, boom. Number 5. Russia has moved up, and here we start seeing Germany. Germany. United Kingdom. France. Old world, red. Asia x Japan, yellow. Boom. This is an old chart that I found many years ago, which was a key reason why I went to Asia and spent so many years there. It was exactly this chart. Here is Asia, here is Americas, and here is Europe. There are many different sources and they all look a little bit different. Here is Asia Pacific. Again, this is percent. That's why USA is going down here. And I don't know, it looks here like Europe is negative down here, but it's probably just really small. Asia, Europe, North America. Shout out to Ivan for finding this chart. I thought it was really insightful. 2008, Eurozone, US, about the same. 2023, Eurozone, the US. I feel Europe's pinnacle of innovation has been this, so when you pour the milk, it splashes all over. I understand the objective is to avoid that this one ends up in the nature, but instead of politicians trying to come up with a solution, you put requirements on what you want done, and actual engineers will figure it out. Tetra Pak is also Swedish. And here it's a paper straw in a plastic bag for an aluminium container. You've already broken the paper straw. And then if you get this out, and with 4 kids I do have some experience here in multiple ways. But since the paper straw is too weak, this is very difficult to get in here. And if you remember this from your childhood, part of the fun was to do it yourself. And last but not least, the incredible EU innovation of the cookie banner. I mean, what does it even say here? You may click to consent to our and our 1447 partners' processing. Please note that some processing of your personal data may not require your consent, but you have a right to object to such processing. Your preferences will apply to this website only. Please note that this website app uses one or more Google services. Oh my gosh, that's an American company. I don't know, guys, I don't think this improves anything. And to drive this point home even a little bit more, for the past 10 years or so, I feel that EU has been in a mode of stopping change. Hard regulation for anything new. Could it be that we're approaching the day which came in the US, where a majority of people felt that we're on the completely wrong course? In the US, whatever we think about the candidates, radical change won a landslide victory over status quo. How can you look at this and feel, wow, we're really smashing it here, guys? Europe used to rule the world. Heck, UK alone used to rule the world. I read somewhere that the Independence Day from the UK is the most common holiday in the world. That's not the case anymore. Europe has really lost it and slowly turning into a museum country. When I was born, Sweden was the richest country in the world because of those multinational companies, IKEA, Ericsson, H&M, Volvo, Saab, Electrolux, ABB, Astra, Spotify, all the products of brave entrepreneurs acting in a business-positive environment. Where are all the new ones? Nowhere to be found. Perhaps status quo has gotten so bad that some drastic change can actually happen, as happened in El Salvador, Argentina, and maybe will happen in the US now. So I think all over the world there are winds of change blowing. Today's policy is almost the same in the entire Western world. It's accelerating debt, physical gold, and regulation largely designed to stop disruption in order to preserve the incumbents. And never in my lifetime has that been so clear as with the blockchain technology disruption versus the powerful and well-funded lobbyists from the traditional financial system. But perhaps the status quo has now become so bad that we could get new policies where we, as Elon Musk says, try to step away from driving America bankrupt and instead start thinking like a company. You need to have some economic surplus to have freedom. Perhaps the physical gold could transition into digital gold in era digitalis, and regulation that moves from stopping disruption to boosting technology innovation. Nah, Larsson, that will never happen. I think it will. Because I feel the day is soon coming where politicians of the world will start discovering that all the biggest companies of the world, they're all tech companies now, with the exception of physical gold. Then we have Nvidia, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, Google, Bitcoin, then comes a few others, then we have Meta, Tesla, and then comes Berkshire Hathaway, TSMC. I mean, how can you sit and craft regulation and come to the conclusion, no, we should try to stop tech innovation here to preserve the golden days? And Europe in particular had an advantage. Okay, but those days are long gone, guys. Wake up! They're all tech companies now, and they're all American. To have any chance of this, you need to attract, you need to boost technology innovation. That's the only way. Embrace era digitalis. My point with this whole story is that moving up into these numbers, when we start talking about several hundreds of thousands of dollars, it is difficult. It becomes like swimming in syrup. Viscosity increases. As viscosity is higher, the area is higher, you need to apply bigger force. But with the society changing and unfolding, I think it is possible. The 300k level is not complete crazy town. Again, this is not a prediction. Don't bet your money on that price will be this on that day. That's the wrong conclusion from this video. Don't rely on predictions. But to play this game, we need to understand what are the possible scenarios. And 300k at one point of time is definitely a possible scenario. That's the takeaway. Michael Saylor is talking about US could see a 16 trillion benefit from a 1 million Bitcoin purchase. And he has made a Trump max scenario in which the country purchases 4 million Bitcoin. resulting in a return of 81 trillion. Of course then based on that the world largely transitions from physical gold to digital gold. The second takeaway is that most of you haven't watched my last video about crypto as a payment utility from last Friday, which I think you should, because it explains exactly why Bitcoin isn't a tulip bubble, because that will be claimed a lot now that the price is going parabolic. There is nothing indicating this trailing off. In fact, this is either painting a pennant if we include the wicks, or an ascending triangle if we exclude them. Either way, that's a positive development. Larsson line is gold, life is good. It's been 2 incredible weeks in the market. Thank you, Tack. CTO Larsson out.